Hey guys, for today's video, I'll be going over Hysilens kit, relics, and ornaments, Lightcones, teams, and constellations to help you reach your full potential. Starting off with her kit, her skill has a 100% chance to increase damage taken by all enemies by 20%, lasting for 3 turns, while also dealing physical damage to all enemies. For her ultimate, Hysilens deploys a zone that reduces enemy targets' attack by 15% and defense by 25%, while also dealing physical damage to all enemies. Also, whenever an enemy target within the zone takes damage from dots, Hysilens deals physical dots equal to 80% of her attack, in which the dot cannot repeatedly trigger this effect, and this effect can only be triggered up to 8 times per turn or per ally target's single attack. Not only that, but the zone only lasts for 3 turns, and it decreases by 1 turn at the start of each turn. And the zone will be dispelled if Hysilens becomes knocked down. For her talent, it states that when an ally target attacks, there is a 100% base chance for Hysilens to inflict wind shear, bleed, burn, shock on the hit enemy target, prioritizing to inflict different states. Under any one of these dot effects, at the start of each turn, the enemy target takes either wind, fire, or lightning dot equal to 25% of Hysilens attack for 2 turns. Under the bleed state, at the start of each turn, the enemy target takes physical dots equal to 20% of their max HP up to 25% of Hysilens' attack, lasting for 2 turns. For her passives, they state that at the start of battle, Hysilens creates a zone with the same effect as her ultimate, lasting for 3 turns. And whenever Hysilens creates a zone, she recovers 1 skill points. Her other passive states that when Hysilens uses her ultimate, if the enemy target is currently afflicted with dots, all dots currently applied on the target will immediately deal damage equal to 150% of their original damage. And for her last passive, if Hysilens' effect hit rate is above 60%, for every 10% exceeded, it increases Hysilens' damage by 15% up to 90%. Anyways, you want to apply all of this Hysilens kit information by just making sure her ultimate is always up, since her whole kit revolves around her ultimate. You also want to make sure that her skill, damage taken increase, is always in effect. Not only that, but you're also going to want to apply a ton of dots to the enemies so that her ultimate can do 8 instances of dot damage per turn. And you're going to want to use her ultimate to keep 100% ultimate uptime, but also you should want to use her ultimate when the enemy has a ton of dots so that she can trigger them all. So now that we've gone through her kits, I feel like it's pretty evident that Hysilens is going to be incredibly powerful for dot teams and nowhere else. Thus, her pull value diminishes tremendously if you don't have other characters that are good for dot like Black Swan, Robin, Tribby, Cypher, Ruan Mei, Huohuo, or most importantly, Kafka, who is an irreplaceable component of dot teams. Regardless, if you do not have these characters, it seems like she's going to act as an irreplaceable component in dot teams as well, by acting as the irreplaceable main DPS. You see, if we look at where the dot team is right now, it seems like even with a character as powerful as Kafka, she can still barely carry the dot playstyle up to T1 before the playstyle starts falling off, since they can only clear MLC in 8 cycles. Now if you were to replace, say, Robin and replace her with Hysilens, well then now the dot playstyle is actually reaching meta levels, since they can now clear MLC 12 in or less than 5 cycles. Thus, if you really enjoy playing dot and already have Black Swan and Kafka, or if you're planning on also pulling Kafka on her rerun, well then I definitely recommend picking up Hysilens so that your dot team isn't T1 anymore. But do keep in mind that the dot playstyle is heavily critiqued by the community because the dot playstyle is inherently flawed. Since it doesn't scale off of crits, it's bad in multiple wave scenarios since you need to constantly reapply the dots, and because the endgame is timed, so the fact that you have to wait for the enemy's turn for your damage is pretty counterintuitive. For her Lightcones, her signature is really good because it increases her effect hit rate by 40%, increases dots damage taken by up to 30%, and it increases her speed by 10% for 3 turns when attacked by an ally target, which helps her reach her speed breakpoints by only needing 129 speed rather than 134. Not only that, but this Lightcone also helps her reach 120% effect hit rates, all while increasing dot damage by 30%. For an alternative, Jiao Cho's Lightcone will be viable because it increases her effect hit rate by 60% and it increases damage received by enemies by up to 24%. For another alternative, Black Swan's Lightcone is also good because it increases her effect hit rate by 40% and her attack by 20%. Not only that, but it also lets her ignore up to 28.8% of the target's defense. For another alternative, Silverwolf's Lightcone will also be decent because it increases her effect hit rate by 24% and damage taken by enemies for 1 turn every time she uses her basic attack, skill, or ultimate by 12%. For another alternative, the Solitary Healing Lightcone would be decent Hysilens if you can reach her required stats from her relics alone, since they can increase dot damage by 48% for 2 turns after she uses her ultimate, but it doesn't provide her with any attack or effect hit rate. For a 4-star alternative, the tutorial Lightcone will also be good because it increases her effect hit rate by 40%. For another 4-star alternative, the Eyes of the Prey Lightcone would also be good because it increases her effect hit rate by 40% and dot by 48%. For her teams, Hysilens will really only work with Kafka. Really only works with Kafka, Black Swan, Robin, Ruan Mei, Tribi, Cypher, and Huohuo because they either increase attack, increase damage dealt, apply dots, reduce resistances, or reduce defense. Kafka is by far Hysilens' best teammate because she's able to trigger all the dots that Hysilens applies throughout her ultimate and talents. Not only that, but she's also able to increase Hysilens' attack by 100%, which synergizes extremely well with her 90% damage dealt boost from Hysilens' passive. Black Swan will also be another best in slot teammate with Hysilens because of her insane dot application and damage. Not only that, but she can also reduce the defense of enemies by 20% once they have 7 Arcana stack. Robin will be a good alternative to Black Swan because she can increase attack percentage, damage dealt, has good sub DPS, and she can advance allies forward. Ruan Mei will also be decent because she can increase damage dealt and she provides all-type rest pen. Tribi will also be good for pretty much the same reasons. She increases damage taken by enemies, provides all-type rest pen, but she also has good sub DPS. Cypher will also be a good alternative because her true damage works with dot damage. Not only that, but she applies an unconditional vulnerability debuff to the enemies. Huohuo is going to be Hysilens' best in slot sustainer because she's the only sustainer that can increase attack. For her Eidolons, her E1 states that when Hysilens is on the field, allied targets deal dot equal to 116% of the original damage. It also states that when Hysilens inflicts either wind shear, bleed, burn, or shock on enemies through her talent, there is a 100% base chance to additionally inflict either a wind shear, bleed, burn, or shock state that is identical to and coexists with the original talent effect, which is pretty good because it pretty much doubles her dot application and increases her dot damage in general by a ton. For her E2, it states that while the zone from her ultimate is active, the damage boost effect from the trace the Fiddles of Pearls applies to all allies, which is really good because it increases all allies' damage by up to 90%, which synergizes really well with Kafka's 100% attack buff that she gives to her allies through her trace. For her C4, it states that while the zone is active from her ultimate, it reduces all type res for all enemies by 20%, which is only decent considering that this is her E4, but nonetheless it is a pretty good amplifying effect. For her E6, it states that while the zone from her ultimate is active at the start of each turn or in each attack by an allied target, it increases the maximum trigger count for Hysilens' physical dot effect up to 12 times, and it increases the damage multiplier of the damage dealt by 20%, which again, considering it's her E6, it's only decent because even if it more than doubles her ultimate dot application and it increases the damage multiplier, it'll still cost you around $2,000 max to get. Regardless, if you do wish to summon on Hysilens even after all of these critiques and wish to vertically invest in her, for my recommendations, which aren't financial advice, I would recommend going for Black Swan's signature if you're going for E1, since at E1, Black Swan's signature is ironically better than her own signature. Now if you're going for E2, then I would recommend going for her E2, and then going for her signature, since at E2, her own signature is better than Black Swan's signature. Now considering that Hysilens needs to be paired up with pretty specific units, I'd recommend horizontally investing into her as well, by summoning on other units and getting their Eidolons and or signatures, which are at times more important than Hysilens' own signature or Eidolons. For example, like I've mentioned prior, Kafka is crucial for dot teams, thus I wouldn't recommend going for her signature or her Eidolons if you don't already have Kafka. When it comes to Huohuo, she's pretty expendable even if her attack percentage and energy recharge are insane for Kafka's dot triggers. Other options like Gallagher or Hyacine are still extremely good. When it comes to the other sub DPS or amplifiers for dot teams, Black Swan would be an ideal choice, but if you do prefer to get a character that is better for more than one team, aka dot teams, getting Tribi, Cypher, or Robin are all way better options than Black Swan, as well as better options than some Eidolons or Lightcones for Hysilens or dot characters. But if you really don't care about the value of your account and just want to play dots, well then I recommend going for Black Swan instead. Now if you're wondering what to prioritize when vertically and horizontally investing onto Hysilens, I would recommend going for Kafka, then Black Swan, then Hysilens' E1, then Black Swan's E1, then Black Swan's signature for Hysilens if you're stopping at E1, then Kafka's is E1. Then you can vertically invest into Hysilens and get her to E2 and then get her signature, although I would recommend getting her own signature rather than Black Swan's if you are getting her to E2. And if you're wondering about getting Black Swan or Kafka's Lightcone for their respective characters, just get Zhao signature for Black Swan and Cypher's signature for not only Kafka, but seemingly every Nihility character ever. Anyways, if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have anything to say, please leave it down in the comments below. I would greatly appreciate it. Goodbye.